All three elementaries are going to be in there. They got 50.
Yes.
And each two grades is going to have a principal.
Hi, Mark.
This meeting of the Board of Education is called to order. Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everybody. Happy New Year. This is our first meeting of the new year. And to get our meeting underway, the first thing we need to do is approve our agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda as presented? Hearing none, is there a motion, please, on page 2?
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education approve the agenda as printed.
Thank you, Kimberly. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion passes. We'll proceed with our agenda as planned. And this is our organizational meeting, so our first order of business, the election of officers. I'll just read from this quickly. The board's past president will officiate during the election of the president. Following election of the board president, that person will conduct the election of the vice president and secretary. The person conducting the election of each position will ask 3 times for nominations for each position. The nominations will then be closed. The person conducting the election or her designee will compile the votes and announce those candidates receiving 2 or more votes and how each board member voted. Election of officers shall be by a majority of the full board. If only one person is nominated for an office, the person conducting the election may declare that person elected by acclamation. A nominee is elected to each position by a majority of support from the board. And Barb, you'll help us out, right?
Sure.
Excellent, thank you. Is there a nomination for the office of president?
Mr. President, if you are willing, I nominate Randy Van Antwerp to serve as president.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Is there another nomination for the office of president? Is there another nomination for the office of president? Hearing none, then, Mr. Van Antwerp is elected by acclamation. Is there a nomination for vice president?
Mr. President, I present the name of Bo Snyder for Vice President.
Is there another nomination for the office of Vice President? Is there another nomination for the office of Vice President? Therefore, being there are no other nominations, Bo Snyder is elected by Vice President by acclamation. Congratulations, Bo. Is there a nomination for Secretary?
Mr. President, I nominate Terry Noveria for the position of Secretary.
Thank you. Is there another nomination for the office of Secretary? Is there another nomination for the office of Secretary? Hearing none, then by acclamation, Terry Noveria is selected as Secretary by acclamation. Congratulations, Terry. Okay, thank you. Moving on, we have the superintendent's report, and our first update tonight is a bond project update.
Thank you, President Van Antwerp, and members of the Portage Public Schools Board of Education. Happy New Year. Glad to see everyone and wanting to wish everyone a Happy New Year. First, we'll have a brief bond presentation by our Assistant Superintendent of Operations, Russ Gerber, and then following that, Michelle Karpinski will come with a video of appreciation for our board.
Good evening, Superintendent Edwards, Board of Education. I'll give you a quick overview of how the bond project is going starting the new year. We're going to start first at Woodland Elementary. Right here, as you're seeing, this is Unit A of the building. It's also the administration area of the building. The gap you're seeing in between the 2 walls is going to be the curved part of the front entryway. So that's the curved office area. And then the taller wall there is the gymnasium. So that is coming along really nicely. Unit A is almost done. They got to finish the curved wall, and then they have 6 more courses of the gymnasium to put up. The winds have been a little delaying that a little last couple of days, but they've been able to move on to Unit C to keep the bricklaying going. So they're not losing time, just they're not able to completely check off Unit A quite yet. But Unit A is looking nicely. Here's another view of that from the side. You can start seeing how tall some of the walls are becoming over there. So it's looking pretty good. Excited to get the Unit A done so they can start laying steel and the roof on Unit A. So that's exciting for them to move along with that. This is kind of the inside of the gym area. You're looking through the back doors there. And just took this picture up so you can see the conditions when it freezes and thaws, It gets a little soupy out there in areas. It's actually a pretty good, this is probably the worst of it. Most of the site's actually pretty nice. It's good sand, stuff's just going right through, so that's good. We do have a couple areas that get a little soupy out there for the workers. Here you can see the steel and the structure coming together. This you're looking at, behind me is Unit C, and then in front of me you can see the side of Unit A on the back right, and then on the left is Unit C, or Unit B, where they have the decking up on the deck and everything already. So with the decking up there, that's the precast concrete, you can see with the little holes on top. They're going to start laying brick on the second floor here soon. So you'll be able to see the second floor start to come up in Unit B. And when they're done with that, you'll see the overall height of the building and everything back there. But that's another wind kind of factor being up on that platform. It can get windy and they have to be careful because when you're building a wall that doesn't have all the sides on it, it can kind of be a little floppy. So there's wind restrictions and everything. If the wind gets above like 20 miles an hour, they can't be laying brick there. So they just move around and lay where they can. So they have plenty of spots to keep them busy right now, and hopefully the wind dies down as we get further through winter and into spring, where they're able to get all the second floor of Unit B done. Here's just another angle of Unit B as well. Here's what it looks like up on top of Unit B. Here's the preformed concrete on the top, and then they fill it with concrete. And what they'll do here is once they get the second floor brick cement cinder blocks laid up, they'll actually pour 4 inches of concrete over that, so it'll be nice and smooth. So if you're up there right now, there's like inch variations in height with how things come together, and then they just concrete it off, so it's a nice smooth surface for that second floor concrete to rest on, carpet to rest on. Here's some of the electrical work that they've done so far. A lot of conduit. You can see there's a ton of conduit. This is going to be the main electrical room, and all these conduits run to sub panels throughout the building. So the electrical guys there digging lots of trenches and putting lots of pipe in the ground, and there'll be just as many conduits in the ceiling and everything. This is just to get the electrical from the main electrical room through all the closets throughout the building. And they do it underground because it's the best place to do it out of the way. This is our stormwater management system. These are actually cylinders that they put in the ground, and they'll put them all together and it'll just hold the water down there instead of having a retention pond that you see out front. It's all held underwater before it heads out to the public sewer system here. But that excavator is a giant excavator. The photo doesn't do it justice, but it's very deep right there. Good thing is that soil is very sandy, like really good sand, so we have really good absorption there as well. So it's a positive. And then we also started off our engagements at Angling Road Elementary School this past week. For you guys that saw our Facebook post, we had an engagement session for our students. So we brought every single student from Angling Road to the engagement session and really heard what they wanted to see in their new building. They had some great ideas, a 2-story gym with an indoor track. It was just the enthusiasm, but they also came with some great, like they want soft seating so they can learn how they're comfortable. They talked about quiet spaces and spaces that are really loud so they can focus. They really, you could tell that they took the exercise to heart, because some of them came with some great suggestions, stuff that we've already done in all of our other buildings so far. So they're going to be happy when they see it carry through to this building. But it was a lot of fun just hearing the kids, the enthusiasm, and bringing all those kids through. It was quite the ordeal. It was a lot of fun for the building, a little disruptive for the day, but it was a lot of fun, and the kids had a good time with it. And the fun part is, after the student engagement, we brought the staff engagement right after school with the staff, and the energy the kids brought through the day, the teachers brought to that staff engagement, and they're engaged talking through all the prompts and everything that Fielding International and Tower Paints to put them through, and they were fully engaged for that hour and a half, and a lot of great work got done. So that was a ton of fun with angling for the entire day over there, working with the kiddos and working with the adults in the evening. A lot of great work got done. So that was the first engagement with the staff, like the whole staff, and then the first engagement with the students. So it went really well. So that's my quick presentation today. You guys got any questions?
Has any of the angling staff been through the new elementaries?
Yep, so we did ask that question. A good chunk of them, I'd say 70% of the staff have gone through the new buildings. The DAT team, which is the design team for the building, actually went, and we started off, our first DAT meeting was at Haverhill to make sure they got an understanding of what we're doing for new buildings.
Okay, great.
Yes,
How many students are we looking at for Angling Road for construction? I mean, like,
the capacity of the building, we're shooting for 450 capacity of the building. So that's just it's a 3-section building. There we go.
It's just exciting to see things move through the winter.
Yes.
And it seems like there's been no big holdup in the winter. It's all been manageable.
Yeah, I mean, it's been, December was a December for the books. I mean, it was cold, but they worked through it. They found ways to get keep laying the block by building that enclosure we talked about last time. So they're doing what they need to keep the job moving forward, and we're all looking forward to spring. Well, thank you very much, you guys.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
All right, Michelle has a nice something for.
Good evening, trustees, Superintendent Edwards. So in case you weren't aware, January is School Board Appreciation Month. So we thought it would be fun this year to go out and see what the students were thinking about. Now, given the nuances of policy governance, their answers weren't 100% accurate, but for the most part, they were pretty good. So without further ado, now this will hopefully be, unless you guys like totally poo-poo it after this, we want to make this a reel and put it out on social media and have a little fun with it. So it's very short, so without further ado.
My name is Caleb Furward, and I'm a senior at Portage Northern High School. The school board helps pass budgets and approve curriculum, and also gets our new superintendents. We have the great Mr. Edwards now, and so they're just really important to making sure that PPS has a good vision going forward, and that our education continues to improve on a consistent basis.
What I know is that they decide what's happening at the schools, and they keep the superintendent in check, which keeps the principal in check.
It's School Board Appreciation Month, which I think is so important because the school board oversees so many of the things that most people don't realize. They hire the superintendent, they hire staff, they make curriculums.
One thing I know about the board is that they keep principals in check in all of the school district of PPS.
I think the school board is important because they pass budgets and design curriculums and approve of stuff that the superintendent does, and they also vote on a superintendent.
They're like the boss of everything. I want to thank the Board of Education for funding our field trips, helping with teachers and our Chromebooks and technology. I'd like to say thank you to the board of PPS just for doing all this work, and they should be most appreciated this month.
Thank you.
That's great, thank you.
I like that.
Yeah,
If you follow our socials, you'll be seeing that running throughout the month, so.
we're the boss of everything, remember that.
The boss of everything.
Thank you, Michelle, for you and your team.
Okay, we'll move on to presentation of monitoring report 1.1, elementary.
All right. Tonight, our Director of Elementary Education, Dr. Kelly Jensenius, will report on the elementary version of monitoring report 1.1. At our last board meeting in December, Dr. Michael Pasco presented on the secondary. And so now here is our report for the elementary.
Thank you. Good evening, Superintendent Edwards and trustees. Tonight I'm here to interpret MR11 by looking at each Portage Public School elementary school's top 10 similar schools across the state. And this is in an effort to determine where our buildings fall within their own comparison group. All information you will see this evening is pulled from my school data with criteria based on total enrollment, economically disadvantaged percentage, and demographics. With that cap of 125% of our highest schools' total per pupil expenditures at each level. Total building per pupil expenditures for the sake of MR11 is pulled directly from my school data as well. This approach does help to eliminate groupings of all schools into one average and provide each school with a true comparison to like schools that have similar makeup, just as Dr. Pasco talked about last time. So, looking at elementary, so some of this is very familiar. We're reporting on the same 3 areas with true comparators in the state for the proficiency measurements. Percent proficient is simply looking at one testing cycle of data from the spring of 2025. Percent proficient improvement is where we look at current scores compared to the previous 3-year average to see if we're improving over the past, essentially is what we're trying to do there. And then we'll look at growth, which is determined by the percent of Portage Public School students with an SGP of at least 30. And my school data defines average growth as SGPs from 30 to 69. That range, and then above average growth as SGPs from 70 to 99. So we kind of have that filled out for you. This looks familiar. We talk about this each time. So you know that the criteria is based on recommendations from some of our Portage schools as they were preparing for district data reviews, and they were noting that schools in their comparator districts were just very different from them demographically. And so those weren't very helpful at the building level. And so you can see on the slide the breakdown of this criteria in weight. And then you can see the previous comparator district criteria that we used. In your figures 28 and 29, that's where we have the similar schools for each elementary school listed, as well as the total per pupil expenditure. So you have that data with you. We're going to start off with our percent proficient in ELA and math. Then we'll move on to percent proficient improvement in ELA math. That takes us into growth. So we'll start there. All right, so this should look familiar. You should have this graphic here. And if we go through here, we have 3 categories at the top of the table. So you start to see the rank colorings. Above expectations in the blue ranges from first to third, meaning they were above most of those comparators in their similar schools. At expectations, they were right in the middle, like 4th through the 6th. And below expectations, they were 7th through 10th, so below most. So you should be looking at figure 19 in your packet. That should be similar to this one. We start with the ELA percent proficient and see that Lake Center and Woodland were at that expectations, again, compared to their individual similar schools. And then the others that were ranked are ranked below expectation, again, against their similar schools, not each other. Multiple demographic group data will still be looked at during our data reviews. In each of the 8 elementaries, which is currently happening right now. So each elementary is looking and digging into their data information and making decisions based off of that. You have a complete list of similar schools that determine where each elementary school landed within that group in figure 20. So you can start to see ELA, figure 20, you see where they are with their own individual similar schools. We can also look at figure 19 in your packet. Look down below, you see the math percent proficient. Here, again, same ranking. Angling Road, Central L, Haverhill, and 12th Street are at expectations compared to their individual similar schools. And then the other 4 were at below expectations. You can start to see and pull that apart. And again, this would be in figure 21 with the math data to compare their similar schools and how that came to be. So this next one, when we move on from percent proficient, we look at percent proficient improvement within their similar schools. And this should be figure 22 in your packet. And if we compare, what we're doing is comparing over 3 prior years, specifically looking at percent proficient, which serves as our trend data. So all similar schools are listed in figure 23 for your reference. So we're looking at figure 22, but if you dig down deeper, you see them in figure 23. So 2022, 2023, and 2024 make up that 3-year average. And that weighted average is based on the number of students who took the test each spring, which is how we do this in past reports, where we get that weighted average from. So if you're looking at figure 22, which is up here on the screen as well, comparing 2025 data to previous 3-year averages in ELA percent proficient, you can see that Amberley and Central L are above expectations compared to their individual school rankings. That's not above expectation, so we know that we're comparing them against others still. I always have to do that when I do this report. Haverhill, Lake Center, and Woodland are at expectations, while Angling, Morrisbridge, and 12th Street are below. And the expectations are about their rankings and not the percent improvement. So that's how this graphic is looking here. I just want to make that clear. We do the same thing for math on figure 22. Amberley, Central L, and 12th Street are above expectations compared to their individual similar schools. Haverhill, Lake Center, and Woodland are at expectations compared to their individual similar schools. And then Angling Road and Morrisbridge are below expectations. So when we look at the percent proficient improvement across all 8 Portage elementary schools, we are starting to see 6 of the 8 elementary schools show positive percent proficient improvement. That is not one you say often, compared to the past 3 years. So we're seeing some good things come out of that, right? And again, all similar schools are listed in figure 24 for you. So that was percent proficient improvement. All right, looking now at student growth. We'll get all that tongue twisted. The previous data in this report focused on school level proficiency and school level improvement and proficiency. This section is around our student growth. And the improvement in proficiency is based on how the 2025 fifth graders perform compared to the average of 3 previous classes of fifth graders. When we start to look at growth, remember we always switch over now to growth, this is based on individual students performing, okay, in the 5th grade compared to their peers with similar prior test scores. So if I performed here, similar students performed here, how now the next year did I grow compared to these similar kids? So now we're looking at kids. So what you might see is a school may show low improvement in proficiency, but they still show high growth, since the improvement in proficiency is more of a school measure and growth is more of an individual measure. Okay, so good things to remember now before we move into this is that average growth by Michigan School Data defines that as an SGP, and average is 30 to 69, and that above average growth for SGPs is from 70 to 99. So we want to see where those are landing. Okay, and then for academic growth, the statistical norm for the percent of students with average growth or above average growth is 70%. So therefore, any Portage school with at least 70% of students in these ranges is considered to be at expectations. A lot of words going on here. Any Portage school with less than 70% of students in these ranges is considered to be below expectations. So you start to see where those are coming from. All right. So we move into ELA. This should be figure 25. And this shows the 20-25% of students with average or above average growth for each school. So in ELA, we start to see that Amberley, Central L, Haverhill, and Lake Center are at expectations, meaning they hit that 70 or above. And then Angling Road and Morrisbridge are below, but they are within that 2 to 3% of meeting that goal of 70. And so we wanted to make sure you were able to see that we're moving there. And if we look at math on figure 26, we see that Central L, Lake Center, Morrisbridge, and 12th Street are at expectations, and with 12th Street having 80% of students with average or above average growth. Then we have our Angling, Amberley, Haverhill, and Woodland. They would be considered below that expectation that we would like to hit. This next graph that we're going to take a look at is a new graph. And this is, we've been asked about our students who are considered to have low achieving scores. And so we did not have this in our middle school or high school presentation. However, we want you to know in our final report that we'll be including this for middle school and high school for you. So we needed to define low achieving. And so for this report, low achieving students are interpreted by Portage Public Schools as those whose performance on prior M-STEP assessments indicate they are below the proficiency level. While proficiency serves as just one data point, it does not always directly reflect that student's day-to-day classroom performance. We need to remember that, which is often measured through multiple indicators, including but not limited to student grades. So we just want to make sure that we're clear on that, that if we may, through the definition of this for non-proficient, this is based on this test. Okay, so to look at student growth average for students who are low achieving, we look at figure 27, which is you see up here. Here we extracted data from students whose performance was considered non-proficient to examine their student growth from 4th to 5th grade. Evidence of annual academic growth is interpreted by the percent of Portage students who have a student growth percentile, that SGP, in the average growth, as we talked about earlier, range from 30th to 69th percentile, or above average growth range, 70th to 99th percentile. So in ELA, in all 8 elementary schools, students whose performance is considered non-proficient, so these are students that were considered non-proficient on this graph, demonstrated average growth ranging from the 36th to the 50th percentile. So you can see them in, I'm gonna say, what blue is that one? I think, oh, I'm sorry, it is the first column there. And then in math, you'll see them in the second column by school. In all 8 elementary schools, students whose performance is considered non-proficient demonstrated average growth as well, ranging from the 36th to the 49th percentile. So basically this graph is showing us that our students who are considered non-performing at that 4th grade, when they took the M-STEP, they had average amount of growth. They demonstrated average amounts of growth. And you can see where they landed on there as a whole. Okay? So all that to say, a lot of numbers and data, which is why you have that big packet. While tonight's report isn't the final report, we know we come back in 2 weeks. I did want to take a moment just to talk about some of our next steps and areas of focus in elementary, just as Dr. Pasco did with secondary. I think it's important to remember all our work is grounded in continuous improvement, and that through our multi-tiered system of support, MTSS, that provides that structure for aligning our K-12 professional learning, our curriculum implementation, the data that we use, and the instructional supports that we use to ensure that all students receive the right level of instruction and intervention. When we go into professional development, that is intentionally aligned K-12 so that learning can build over time and strengthen classroom practices. Our teams use the MTSS process to review the data, address instruction, and monitor impact, which is what I talked about earlier with those data reviews that are happening currently. And then through curriculum review cycles, CRC, we hear that acronym a lot lately now, mathematics is entering into phase 3, which has a continued focus on strengthening our mathematical practices. Our ELA is in phase 4 at elementary, which is emphasizing full implementation across the classrooms, and teachers are supported through coaching, PLCs, grade level collaboration as part of that strong tier 1 instruction. Currently, principals are engaging on ongoing improvement cycles by analyzing data to guide instructional decisions, monitor fidelity, and determine their next steps in their continuous improvement process, as well as preparing for M-STEP, and that's embedded into the work that we do through data-informed planning, curriculum, fidelity, coaching, and that family piece too of communication as we get into that. So coaching and PLCs are key MTSS structures that support effective instruction, student engagement, and that data-driven decision-making, and together, all of this is that continuous improvement, multi-tiered systems of support, that we work together to ensure that we have consistent implementation, targeted support, and improved student outcomes district-wide. And so as I mentioned earlier, we'll go deeper into our next steps at the final MR11 presentation. But I just wanted to give you a little bit of what we've been doing. So what questions might you have for me tonight?
Now, Kelly, for example, in the chart with average growth for non-proficient students, could you just take one of the schools and explain it?
Yeah, I can do that. Yep, so if you look at that chart right here, so let's just take Amberley right there, the first one, the first column. If you look at the bottom, you see an EL and an MA. The EL is the English Language Arts, and if you go up, that 42 right there would say that's the range, so they were in that 42th percentile, right, the right percent of average growth. So that's the ELA piece, and then their math was at that 36. So they're within that range of that 30 to the 70, so they're in the average range of growth. And then you would just do that for every school, you could see.
Thank you, that's what I thought, just wanted to make sure, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are you defining the low proficiency under 30%?
Yes, yes, yep. And my school data would define that as under that 30%, yep.
Can we clarify your question? Are you asking that we're defining this non-proficient or lower achieving students or students who did not score proficiency on MSTEP?
Yeah, the group of students, yeah.
Yeah, so when we pull out that group of students, whatever number that is, and we measure their growth, these are how their numbers shake out. Yeah, I just want to make sure we
That's good.
we correctly answer the question.
Kelly, I have just a question, because just back on similar schools, criteria and weights, the total PPE capped at 125% of the highest school's PPE at each level. Can you explain what that means?
Oh, say, which one is it again?
It's the asterisk to the right of the table.
Oh, okay. So that is the total PPE capped at 125%. That hold harmless school piece, I am not very good at that, the financial part of that. I don't know if Mr. Edwards can take a stab on that.
So essentially, not all schools are funded equally,
Yeah.
okay? And so there are some schools or school districts that are considered out of formula. We get roughly 10,000-ish students, dollars per student.
Right.
So we would take a cap of 125% of that. So if someone is out of formula and their expenditure, let's just say 13 or 14,000,
Yeah.
we wouldn't consider that to be a similar criteria because they're spending more dollars per kid than what we are.
Okay.
So that's essentially what that means.
So
So
it's 125% of what ours is.
what ours is.
Because I was
yeah.
thinking it was 125% of what the highest one was. I said, well, that doesn't.
Yeah, so that's kind of what we look at
Okay.
for that. So there are some districts across the state are considered out of formula, and their per pupil foundation allowance is greater than Portage Public Schools.
Okay,
So
great. Thank you.
That one always gets it.
it's all good.
I have a curiosity question that I don't know that you'd be able to answer in detail right now, but maybe if you are able to give a rough, you think so, or would be awesome. With ELA, I noticed some of the growths were not hitting proficient compared to comparator schools as much as I'd like to see.
Right.
It doesn't mean necessarily that our teachers are doing poorly or something, it's just that we're not hitting that higher expectation that has been set. We recently had the newer ELA curriculum, and it was kind of controversial when it was adopted. One of the considerations was that it had not been used prevalently. We adopted it pretty new, when it was pretty new as a curriculum. Are we seeing improved growth with that curriculum, or has the growth decreased?
So what I would say is we have to look at where we're at in the implementation cycle right now. And I think we can dig into that more with you at the next meeting and show that. But when we look at implementation of anything, you'll see an implementation dip often, right? So you know, first you get a curriculum and everybody's learning and everybody's excited, and then we got to figure it out. So then we dip in our knowledge base and we're redoing our practices. And so you'll start to see things go down, and it usually takes 3 to 5 years to see things just come up to where they need to be. It is a very hard time for anybody, right? And oftentimes in education, we go, abandon ship, try something different, when what we really should do is stay true to what we're doing and support and grow with the teachers and work through those barriers and the tough parts to get stronger at it. So I think that's where we're at right now, and we can talk more about that, like I said, at the next one.
Do you have a sense that we are seeing those improvements going at this
We are
point?
seeing some really neat stuff coming out of, like, I was just at one of the schools the other day, and I took some pictures of some of the writing that they had up on the wall. And what we're seeing in this program is a focus and an emphasis on what are we reading, how do we write about it, how do we analyze it, what are we doing with it? And there's some really powerful things that the kids have written. And so, yes, we're starting to see things happen there.
Thank you.
But yeah, I'm
That's what I was
excited for
wondering.
it, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, Kelly, I'm not going to ask any detailed questions because I'm hoping at our retreat on the 26th, we have more time for that kind of discussion. I mean, the big takeaway for me is that some of this is really good. It's, celebratory, and some of it's more humbling. And I think, as a trustee, it's good for us, so I applaud this, is that we see it all. So I applaud, what we're being shown. And as a trustee, I think it's important for us to set expectations so we're always stretching, right? There's always some place we can stretch to. And one thing we should talk about at the retreat is we spent a lot of time last winter at retreats kind of redefining our expectations and how to word that in policy. And it's in there, and it's not quite the way that's in here now. We kind of changed a little bit on these reports. But it's tricky because we embedded it in a different paragraph where you might not have seen it. So anyway, we can pick all that up to all get on the same page. And I think where we're trying to come from in that is having a good apples to apples comparison. So comparing us against other districts or other school buildings that serve communities that look like ours. And then are we toward the better side of that? Not necessarily the top performer, but are we, and kind of the number we landed on is kind of, are we up there around 75th percentile, but kind of better than the median of those that we compared to. And you can state that in 60 seconds, but it took us, 8 hours of retreat, last year to just wrestle with that and try to come up with it. So, but this is the first cycle with that language. So I think when we come out of the retreat and we come out of approving 1.1 here in a meeting or so, is that we all kind of understand, and we're kind of all on the same wavelength with that. So I said it before, I'll say it again, this stuff, these are the best meetings of the year. This is where it's at.
May I yes and to what you said? I agree that I appreciate the openness and the transparency of saying this is where we need to grow, because ultimately that will only benefit our students, all of them. And that is a fantastic thing, and I appreciate how everyone is working towards that with that goal in mind. Thank you.
And I just want to add that I appreciate this graph of the average growth for our students that are struggling to be proficient. So that's helpful to see that that's
Yeah, it was great for us to be pushed on that, to figure that piece out, to have that piece of data. So I enjoy working with you all and figuring out what comes next.
What we focus on with data is where growth happens, and that's a good thing.
And I'm just going to admit, at the retreat, you're going to have to work with me more on that graph. So I fully understand it.
We will work together. Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. Okay, we'll move to our comments and communications section on page 29 of the board packet. I don't believe we have anybody who wishes to make comment tonight, so we'll open it up to comments from board trustees.
Happy New Year.
Randy, if I can say something here?
Sure.
We go through the officer election really fast. And I mean, first thing is thank you all for your support of me, but I want to make a few comments about Randy.
You shouldn't do that in public. I mean, we can take it outside.
You want him to.
Well,
You do.
You've done the job of president for a number of years, and I just want to pause so that we don't take that for granted. People do not understand all that you do and how you do much more than a typical school board president does. And people see the public facing, people see board meetings and might think, you know, well, he manages a nice meeting, which you do. But then, you know, the longer you're a school board trustee, the better you get at it. And you make sure that that happens for us. And you do so much work behind the scenes about good governance and about how we're doing as a board and collecting feedback from trustees and feeding that in and making sure it comes back to retreats so we have a chance to just process it where the clock is running slower and the heat is not on and we can all kind of get on the same page. And that's hugely important. You've pressed us with opportunities for more education and to put that into play here. And then, you know, I would add, you're just a well-liked guy. And you work at that. It's natural, but you also do work. Anyway, people don't see that. And if it's just, there's just one opportunity a year at this meeting to just say thank you, we'll just acknowledge that. So anyway, I think we all appreciate you and what you do.
Well, Bo, thank you very much. Thank you for your kind comments.
And if I could add to that, as someone who's just finishing the first year, Randy's really good for new people. You know, answering texts, answering email, telling me what I don't need to worry about and what I need to, like, point my face at. So, yeah. So, thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Thank you all very much.
I'll just add that your base of knowledge, too, is huge in terms of your own personal background, figuring out who goes with who and what MASB is doing and the county schools and all of those things. You have your hands in so many parts of this. And you spend a lot of time preparing for not just these meetings, but committee meetings. There are several committees that meet, and you're typically there or with us to help with some of that work too. So it's a big job, and I know what time you spend on it, and we all appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate all your kind comments. I enjoy serving with all of you, and I think we can all be pretty pleased with our last year, 2026.
Yes.
We did a great superintendent search, got a great superintendent, and we passed the bonds so we can complete our elementary project. So, you know, the district is doing well, and that's in large part to this board and having us stay in our own lane and doing the things we're supposed to do. So, thank you for your kind comments. Thank you. Any other comments about me? Well, fine.
You're trusting.
Any other comments from anyone? Okay then, very good, thank you. We'll move to our consent agenda, and we have Mark Beelang to thank for this consent agenda because each of these items used to require a separate motion. So we should be able to go through these organizational items fairly quickly. The first one, A, is to designate depositories for school funds. And that would be the following depositories: Comp One, Flagstar Bank, First National Bank, Horizon Bank, Huntington Bank, JP Morgan Chase, Macatawa Bank, Mercantile Bank, PFM Investment Management, and Southern Michigan Bank and Trust. Our second thing to approve is our board meeting schedules for 25, 26, 26, and 27. The schedules are in your packet. The third thing is to designate persons authorized to use the safe deposit box, and that's Superintendent Johnny Edwards, Assistant Superintendent of Operations Russ Gerbers, Director of Finance Paula Johnson, and the Board Secretary. The next item is to designate the electronic transfer officer is Paula Johnson, Director of Finance. The next item is to appoint the board recording secretary as Barb Atkinson. The next is to approve Trune Law Firm PC as the board's and district's primary legal counsel. And finally, to pre-approve the 2026 board member attendance at board-related classes, conferences, workshops, etc., and approve reimbursement for actual and necessary expenses incurred to attend said events as per bylaw 0175.1. Next is our monthly consent agenda item. That's to approve the minutes from the December 8th, 2025 regular business meeting and closed session. And our last item is the approval of Neola policy revisions. Policies 1422, 1422.02, 1662, 2210, 2266, 2412, 3122, 3122.02, 3362, 4122, 4122.02, 4162, 4362, 5120, 5460, 5517.01, 7540.02, 8300, and 8305 as presented. Anybody have any issues with any of those Neola policies?
One correction in the compliance. Randy?
Oh, really?
Listed me as present and I wasn't.
Oh, oh.
Randy, we have one more bank that was missed on there per Paula.
How many banks does she need?
My class. Michigan, like MI class.
Am I what?
MI class is another bank, which I'm sorry, I missed in there.
It's new to the district, it's not new, but it's new to the district, and I wanted to make sure it got approved. It was on my memo, but it must have missed the summary.
Well, I missed it on the note page, so my apologies for missing that.
Okay, well, we'll add that. MI class is another depository for our school funds. Any exceptions to the consent agenda as presented? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. Oh, we got that, right?
Yes.
Emily?
The,
Yeah.
closed meeting.
Correction.
Yeah, with the correction.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't.
Oh, you
I
did?
was not present at the closed meeting.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know that.
Thank you, Emily. Okay, then. Are there any exceptions to the consent agenda as presented? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. And we now move to page 48, Assurance of District Performance, Monitoring Report 2.5, Financial Condition and Activities.
Great. So this is our monitoring report 2.5, which talks about our financial conditions and activities. This is the internal report. There's a lot of similarities to the past, but I do want to acknowledge one portion of this memo that's a little more detailed. As relate to our internal structure, we currently have a projected unassigned fund balance of 20.4% of our expenditures. The board policy says that we should not have a fund balance that goes below 7%, and obviously at 5%, then you're in trouble with the state, and there's a lot of additional reporting. So we do have a fund balance of 20.4%. And I know anytime people see a number, then they start to thinking, are we hoarding or something like that? Should we be doing some things differently beyond that? So I just want to just take a second just to talk a little bit about some shifts that's occurring at the state level financially, just so that the board is aware. First, our projected fund balance for the end of this school year is expected to be about 15%, okay? And I still view that as good financial terms, and that's more than twice the floor that the board has set. But the state funding mechanism is shifting, and it has shifted pretty radically in this last funding cycle. First, I want to acknowledge that the state budget was at least 3 months late, which meant that we had to adopt a budget. You as a board, with our recommendation, had to adopt a budget prior to July 1 by law. But unfortunately, the legislators did not come to an agreement on the financials, so we rolled into October with a state budget. With that being said, the school aid fund ideally is in a healthy position. But the rules around the school aid fund have shifted, and I'll give you a couple examples. One, $850 million from the school aid fund is going to support community colleges and public universities. Since 2011, that total fund has been used, some people use the term rated or redirected. $11 billion from the school aid fund has been directed to fund community colleges and public universities. This year, there was a shift in the retirement costs. There's a term called categoricals out there. So the average district is picking up approximately, throughout the state, it's about $100 million that is not available that's being used to offset our retirement costs. That equates to roughly $195 per pupil in terms of what districts are paying towards retirement costs, more than what they've paid in the past. A big, huge change has also occurred with the gasoline tax. And the school aid fund is being used or reduced by $750 million being shifted to roads with no particular guarantee of how they will reimburse or refund the school aid fund. With that being said, what I want the board to be apprised of is not to be alarmed by the fund balance, because people look at the fund balance as thinking we should be using it differently. I think we will have to use it differently. I think we will have to use it differently to stay competitive in the labor market. I don't perceive that future funding increases at the state level will be as healthy as they have been in recent years. So while we are in a good position financially and our fund balance is not in jeopardy, I also don't want a narrative out there that our fund balance is technically too high. I think we will chip away at our fund balance over the next several years as the state gets their act together about funding K-12 schools, okay? So that's a little different than probably what you've seen in the monitoring report in the past, because the monitoring report is to make sure there are assurances that we don't go too low. And I want to assure you that, yes, we will not go low, but also with the number being out there of our fund balance, understanding that there are some shifts in school funding. And ironically, they just finished this year's funding budget cycle in October, and now we're going to be starting all over again now, thinking about next school year. So just wanted to just share a little bit about that, because that has not been into our monitoring report. And in essence, from our internal perspectives, I think we have great internal controls with our Director of Finance as well as our business office. Throughout this report, you'll see that we pay all of our bills on time, and that's there within the monitoring report. We have met all of our payroll obligations for all employee groups. So all employee groups have been paid as we have negotiated. And then there's also in policy language 2.57 a piece around contractual commitments that's above $100,000, and all of our contractual obligations that are north of $100,000 come to the board for approval. Some examples of that would be Woodlands Elementary construction, various technology purchases, some curricular purchases, our custodial third-party contract, our food service contract. We purchase buses, we purchase vans, and we have SROs as well as nursing servicing contracts. That's not necessarily an exhaustive list. That's just an example of the types of contracts and services that the board has approved in advance. And then 2.58 talks about real estate. We sold one parcel in the last 12 months, and that was a parcel by Portage Northern High School in the amount of $35,000, which the board approved. And then the board also heard a little bit about our leasing agreement with West Middle School. I'm sorry, not West Middle School, West Portage Little League. So that concludes my report for our internal controls 2.5. I'll be happy to go into greater deal of any section of this as you choose. I think there are 11 sections total, but I want to just give an overview of some of the highlights. I'll be happy to answer any questions about the internal report.
Just a short comment. With the, you mentioned the delay in getting budget approved and getting funds flowing to us as a school. And it has always comforted me when I hear about schools that are having to borrow in order to make payroll, that we are not one of those schools.
Correct.
And that is because we do have the planning ahead, the exactly what you described, the foresight to say, hey, something is coming up on the horizon. We need to be prepared for that as a possibility. And that has been very comforting and I'd say just a general relief and something to be proud of as a district, that we are choosing to be financially responsible in that way. Absolutely. To pay for those who do the amazing things in our school that make our schools happen.
Well, we're fortunate because depending on the size of the district and how many millions of dollars they have to borrow to meet payroll, they're paying that back with interest, right? So not only is that a savings on the entrance, that's also a credit to our staffing, which means if we were paying interest on a loan, that would cut into our FTEs of what we're able to do in terms of education of our students. So that's a huge savings that has been around for some time here in Portage. And our business office does an outstanding job of keeping us able to make payroll in the gaps of school funding. And that's another element in which your fund balance comes into play, because you're able to meet payroll, pay bills until that state aid payment kicks in.
I think the monitoring report is fully compliant, has my yes vote. On the issue of fund balance, I mean, I'm usually the one who's asking questions about fund balance, and I get a little uncomfortable when it gets too high. So it's good to hear that, the projection is there are going to be some forces that are going to push it down. I mean, a tripwire for me is when we get to the end of the year, our budgeted fund balance is 15%. If the past is prologue, we'll end the year better than that. Mm-hmm. And I think we've gotten if I recall correctly, we've gotten in this position of high fund balance because we always finish a little better than budget. So we kind of have been creeping up every year. So I'm going to suggest that we spend some retreat time, just kind of slowly going through this. One thing that might work for me is that if we have a threshold that we exceed, it triggers a report. It triggers, something like what you gave tonight, kind of walking us through that. But I just feel a need to have us talk about this more.
Any other questions? No, 2.5 that I can answer?
Thank you for the additional detail, too.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I just want to say, Johnny, it's an excellent report, and I appreciate you going into some depth on the fund balance. And what your comments all illustrate is the unpredictability of state funding.
That's correct.
I mean, this last year was unbelievable. You can add 31A to that, and apparently 6 people in the legislature decided what the school aid fund budget was going to be, and everybody else voted on it at 1 a.m, and a lot of errors were made that they have to correct this next year. So that's what happened last year. And then what's scary to me is MASB's last legislative update, they indicated that the House is going to do a major overhaul of school funding this next year. So, I mean, it could be scary. So, anyway, well, I appreciate the prudent management of our funds, and it's a good feeling knowing we have a cushion if we're going to need it, and appreciate the report. Thank you. Any other comments? There's a motion on page 48, please.
Mr.
President, I move that the Board of Education accept monitoring report 2.5, financial condition and activities internal, as a reasonable interpretation and evidence of compliance with policy.
Thank you, Mark. Is there a second? Second. Thank you. All those in favor of approving monitoring report 2.5, financial condition and activities, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion passes and the monitoring report is approved. Our next assurance of district performance is monitoring report 2.9, emergency superintendent succession.
Well, it's kind of funny to be a new superintendent and then have to do this monitoring report as an emergency. But with that being said, very similar to what has occurred in the past, both our assistant superintendents serve in my absence when I'm away for a conference or out ill. They serve and able to handle the day-to-day pieces if I'm away from the district or not available. In addition to that, Dr. Jensenius plays a good role as well as monitoring, particularly our elementary schools, in the event there's a need for some help. We're going to be doing some work with policy governance in the spring for my professional development in May in Ann Arbor, and I informed the board. And then also having a great administrative assistant in Barb Atkinson. She helps with many of our policies and operational issues kind of behind the scenes, and she can also step in and help. What's included in the monitoring report is our org chart. What I shared to our team, and I may not have shared publicly to the board, that I didn't view in my first year that we needed to change or modify our organizational chart. So while we obviously have different employees in these various roles, the structure that you see in place would remain in place in its entirety for this first year. Over time, we'll study it. If there's an opportunity for us to improve it, we'll look at that. But starting out as a new superintendent, I didn't think it was wise of me to start moving things around. I wanted to actually study it and see how we do. And that has, obviously made our team members know, hey, Johnny's not interested in moving things around. In the future, if there exists an opportunity to improve it, we'll look at that. But for all intents and purposes, this org chart remains intact. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have about emergency superintendent succession.
Good report, Jenny. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a motion on page 59, please.
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education accept as presented the monitoring report on 2.9 emergency superintendent succession as a reasonable interpretation and evidence of compliance with policy.
Thank you. Thank you. All those in favor of approving monitoring report 2.9, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion passes and the emergency superintendent succession monitoring report is approved. We have an action item this evening, and that's to accept the Single Audit Act compliance report.
All right. Sammy Stevens, our business manager, will walk us through this report.
Good evening, Board of Ed and Superintendent Beeling, or Edwards. I kept saying Beeling. I did it because it's so natural.
I'm going to screen and send this to Mark.
Habits, right?
Habits die hard. Tonight in your board report, you'll find the single audit. Typically, this audit is also presented with the normal audit that we present in November of each year when Kim comes and visits. However, this year, this single audit was held out further just because of the federal government shutdown, and we didn't have final guidance for that audit just yet, so I'm here tonight to present that to you. The district is required to have a single audit done, and that's just because we receive more than $750,000 in federal funding. A lot of that comes from the lunch fund, but we still get quite a bit for the general fund. That amount does change. I believe it is this year, and it goes up to, I think it's $1 million. They do test programs just like they test different things throughout the general fund. The programs tested this year were Title I and then the remaining ESSER funding. And I'm happy to report that there were no findings, and we received an unmodified opinion this year. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. This does wrap up monitoring report 2.51, just like with a nice, or 2.5 with a nice little bow for you guys as well, so.
And unmodified made it, so they're good.
As I usually say, both you and Paula, I may have majored in physics undergrad, but when I see all those numbers on a page, my eyes kind of go crazy, and it takes a bit to figure it out, and I am extraordinarily thankful for the two of you with your skills and abilities that keep track of it in a way that just amazes me. Thank you.
Thank you, Sammy, appreciate it.
Absolutely.
We have a motion, right?
Yes.
Yes, on page 64, please.
President Van Antwerp, I move that the Board of Education accept the 2024-25 Single Audit Act Compliance Report as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving the Single Audit Act Compliance Report, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion passes, and the Single Audit Act Compliance is approved. And now we'll move to our discussion items, and I believe Ryan is going to be up for a couple of them with Steve.
Ryan and guest. Evening, Superintendent Edwards. Get that out of the way. So tonight we have two E-rate projects to talk about. If you remember, E-rate is for schools and libraries to secure internet. So what I plan to do is going to read both of the recommendations first, and then we have a short slide deck. Steve's here to help with the historical and super extra technical stuff, so we'll get started on that. So tonight, recommend the Board of Education approve the awarded contract with Verita Telecommunications Corporation for the purpose of replacing and burying the fiber optic cabling that connects all PPS buildings. The total cost for this part of the project will be $433,654.52, and the funds will come from 2025 bond fund. The second recommendation, also a fiber project, I recommend that the Board of Education approve the awarded contract with FiberLink Incorporated for the purpose of installing supplemental fiber optic cabling at both the Central High School and Northern High School outdoor athletics facilities. Total cost for this project will be $26,547.86, and the funds will also come from the 2025 fund. So the slide deck will help explain these projects in more detail, also the funding, because with E-rate, our reimbursement rate, if you remember, projects that qualify for either Category 1 or Category 2, this is what E-rate program, there are different categories of things that they will cover. They reimburse a certain percentage of the project. Our reimbursement rate happens to be 50%, but for fiber optic projects, this last round of E-rate also gave you an additional 20% discount. So for 70% discount rate. So for an overall 30% cost of the project, you can get the project done. So we can go right into that.
Great, thank you. I never thought in my old age I would be the district historian, but here I am tonight.
Just had a birthday.
Yeah, I know, I just had a birthday, so I feel great about that now. So obviously with the cost of this project and overall, I just wanted to give some background on why are we approaching this project and why now on this. So fiber optics is our way that we handle our high-speed data across long distance reliably. This district was very fortunate to be forward-thinking with that and did that project back in the late 90s. All of our district buildings in Portage Public Schools are connected what we call multiple strands of fiber. So that means that in one cable there are multiple smaller cables in there, or really it's just glass that we use light for communications, and that comes back to our administration building here, or over there. That allows us to provide internet access to all of our buildings. All that internet is actually sourced in the administration building, not at our individual buildings. And then allows for the Wi-Fi connection to work reliably, telephones, security camera, access controls, our HVAC scheduling controls, and so much more to work correctly. So fiber is very important for the lifeblood of our district so that we don't interrupt instructional time with any kind of unplanned outages. So here today, this is our existing fiber infrastructure as it exists today. You can see we have a lot of spurs. Basically we have a pattern coming from the administration building. This was all run back in the late 90s with a lot of other school districts in the area and with KRESA to build out a future-proof network to basically allow us internet access at the time for how young it was, but also to interconnect everything to from ISDs to local school districts. Service life of fiber optic cable is approximately 25 to 30 years. If you do the math, we're coming up very closely to that. Most of the fiber optic cable that was run in this was actually done in the air. It was not buried. So there's additional concern over time of UV light degrading that fiber over time. So that does reduce that lifespan by not a ton, but a little bit, and it's concerned. But also we see that aerial fiber optic is vulnerable to weather, vehicle strikes. We do see utility work breaking fiber optic connections. Mostly we see it in tree damage. We'll have trees come up, branches come off and break it in storms. Rodents and critters love to chew the stuff for some reason. Don't quite understand why, but we do see that a lot. And I was talking to Randy beforehand. I think the most memorable fiber optic outage that we had was actually a garage sale sign that was nailed many years ago. So if it's out in the open, it can be damaged very easily. The other consideration here is that actually our school district does not fully control our existing fiber infrastructure, meaning that through many different acquisitions and the way that this fiber was procured, we do not own the entire cable of fiber. We actually own individual strands within that fiber, meaning that when there is damage, it becomes very difficult to coordinate that work because we might be sharing fiber infrastructure with, say, Stryker or Pfizer or other corporations in the area that have different service level agreements. So if there is a break that only affects us, there might have to be a 2-week notice for the other company so that they can manage and control that downtime that may happen. So that becomes an additional challenge when we are coordinating that work there. From my notes here, we've actually seen 3 to 4 different acquisitions of fiber companies that have owned that fiber optic cable over time. So that does present a issue. With that, for this project to become E-rate eligible, we have to put out an RFP, obviously, but we have to ask for fiber in 4 different ways. So one way is we can say we can have standalone internet service at each of our buildings, which means that we would have an internet circuit come in, and it would be our responsibility to provide hardware to link our buildings together. There are advantages and disadvantages to that, but we were currently not positioned to do that with that kind of activity in that build out. There's 2 other ways. There's lease dark fiber, which means that we would actually lease fiber from another entity, and that lease cost would actually take care of any of the maintenance over time, and we would pay that on a monthly and annual cost there. We would be responsible for all the connections there. That's most similar to what we have now, only we own the fiber in there. There's also leased lit fiber, which is very similar to that, but the entity that we are leasing from would provide those connections. And then finally, we have a self-provision network, where we commission the building of the network and we handle that, which is much similar to what we have today. So with that, we have the comparison of those, which is in your packet there. We received different responses back there, so you'll see different numbers there. East dark fiber was quoted by 2 of the vendors, and as we looked at those numbers and extrapolated that out over 20 years, those costs would be well over $2 million to the district. We also had a vendor reply with a least lit fiber option, and that cost was approximately $1.3 million after 20 years. And then we had self-provision fiber vendors come back and with varied costs from $1.4 to $1.6 million. And to be clear, that this is the district option, not the athletics that we were talking about before. The chosen proposal here is very similar to the map that I showed before, but with some slight changes to where the fiber optics run. It's avoiding the West Niche corridor, instead going down the Center Street corridor. Each one would allow us 12 strands of fiber to each school site, which gives us ample opportunity to expand in the future. And the big pro is that it would be 100% buried infrastructure, meaning that then that mitigation of tree damage, weather damage, goes greatly down, and really our only worry then is, people digging and misdig, not marking things quite correctly, which does happen. But that does mitigate that to a much more acceptable level at that point. The approximate build time for that is about 6 months or so. And that lifespan of that fiber would be easily over 30 years because of it being buried in the ground. And I'll give it to Ryan here for how this funding works.
So yeah, this gives a little bit information about what I was mentioning before, how this round of E-rate has our normal reimbursement rate plus an additional 10% discount from the federal government and a one-time state matching grant from Michigan Department of Ed. You may see the letter in your packet actually does have the Superintendent B-Lang, so I almost made the same mistake earlier, not a mistake, but like happy accident. But that letter was because when we applied for this in that E-rate cycle last year, that's when that letter came through. And so I do want to add that there was one proposal that had the fiber terminating at Chick-fil-A that was really difficult to turn down, but we decided that we probably should err on the side of the cost. Before I move off of this, do you have any questions on how that funding works?
Great opportunity for us. Wow.
The 70% discount plus having a supportive community that passes the bonds, this makes a great time, the ideal time to do a project of this scale. So kind of continuing with that, obviously a project on a much smaller scale, but still significant, is supplemental fiber at the athletics complexes. And we call it supplemental because there's already fiber there going to both football stadiums, both team locker rooms, the doghouse and the stable. So those auxiliary buildings, those gyms already have it as well, and the main concession buildings. But there were pockets of both complexes that don't have it. And so, for example, just whatever other fields or press boxes and additional concession facilities will get it as well. So here's a look. The shading's a little difficult on the screen. That is a lot better actually than the TV up there. So you can see this is Portage and Northern. And so all the other areas that I was talking about already have it, but you can see the doghouse. I don't know if the laser guy works. It does. So this is the doghouse. Sorry, Russ, if I get you. Right above there is a baseball field. So we'll have a connection there, and then we'll be going out to the soccer field to make sure both sides are covered, and then down to the softball field as well. And that will cover all of the facilities out there on Northern's complex. At Portage Central, we've got a couple different locations, so just to kind of orient you, football stadium here, the home stands over here, if you can imagine that, soccer field right behind, and then we'll be running down here to the additional soccer concession stand, and then over to baseball. And then similar on the other side of the field, this is the team locker room. So on the, and then we'll go right out to softball as well. So what does this do for us there? It gets the infrastructure in place for those, all of the facilities now at both complexes. And what we're seeing is increased demand and all kinds of things from cameras that are, live streaming the games, or they're cameras that are being used for recruiting purposes. The concessions, obviously, the point of sale devices that are used out there, ideal to have Wi-Fi. The team locker rooms, they sometimes want to review footage from their game right during halftime or whatever. So there's a lot of uses and a lot more demand that we're seeing over time. Exterior Wi-Fi is an increasing demand. There's all kinds of things that are there. We can't really do any of that without the infrastructure in the ground. So similar to the cost breakdown for the district fiber, overall the project would cost us close to $89,000. The out-of-pocket really ends up being $26,547.86. So this time, any questions that you might have or thoughts or anything you want to share? Yes.
The data center for everything is at the ad building right now, is that correct?
Correct.
And how will this impact the capacity that we have for that here?
So it'll keep it the same. We actually will have more strands of fiber buried in the ground than what we currently have access to now, so room to expand. It won't impact, as far as the capacity goes, what we have in the data center currently. And we also have a disaster recovery site within the district as well. So we always, so say something happens, to the fiber connection to the admin building, we have backup in case that were to happen. Anything you want to add to the capacity?
No, yeah, so capacity does not really have a net change at the very end. The fiber is really just the lifeblood of getting data from one point to another. We've seen technology where speeds have increased, so we can push much more data over one strand of fiber. But there's also technologies out there too that we've used to help mitigate some capacity issues, where we can use one length of fiber in one strand to have multiple data links on that by, really for a lack of better terms, of shooting different colors of light down the fiber. So we've used that when we've had creative needs there to help with costs, so we didn't have to procure that at that time. But we did upsize how much is going to Northern High. And then if you looked at our first map there, you kind of saw that there was like a circle going up out to K-Risa as well. We did upsize over to Zileman because that loop would still be in existence from, because that was procured later in close to 2009, right around there.
Okay, thanks.
When would this work begin?
Well, pending board approval at the end of the month, we would kick off a meeting with both vendors to determine the timing of everything, but apparently as soon as the ground can thaw and that the construction teams are available, that we can start. So pie in the sky, ideal, would love to have it done for the fall. Don't know if that's realistic or not, but we can keep you posted on that.
For the district-wide project, there's a lot of permitting that needs to go into that as well. So that permitting would start, and then once the ground would thaw, they would start, commence work on that. But the district-wide fiber vendor has said that would be a 6-month lead time from basically the word go to the build-out being complete. The other, the athletics ones, is a little bit more cut and dry, and that would be done probably, my guess is, about a month or so.
We'll have to avoid this spring sports schedule, and work around that because they'll be on site with the boring machine to be able to bury the fiber, those cables and everything like that. So we'll have to work around some complicated schedules probably to get that done. Just one last thing, E-rate happens in 5-year cycles. So So this was a part of the last 5-year cycle. The new next 5-year cycle has begun. We've already put out another RFP specifically for fiber maintenance. So what happens if the, over exuberant homeowner, is putting a new picket fence out by the road and cuts through the fiber or something like that? The maintenance contract that we would have is also E-rate eligible, and that would be the agreement that we have, the contract that it would come to respond to any fiber breaks. So that will be included in the next E-rate cycle that we'll have covered for it.
Oh, thanks, great work. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Our last discussion item tonight is to approve the program of studies.
So coming up tonight, we have both Tracy and Mackenzie within our CIA department. Tracy is our director of systems and our 9-12 curriculum, and then Mackenzie works with the youngers, so young 5 from kindergarten through 8th grade, along with professional art.
Good evening, Superintendent Edwards and Board of Trustees. We are excited just to be up here tonight and be able to update you with any changes and additions to the program of studies for your approval. So we'll start with elementary. There were our typical updates, changing names, roles that may have changed, locations, just very basic stuff, and making sure the table of contents matched the new page numbers. So no major updates to elementary. As for middle school, we made those same small adjustments that always happen, but then we did add the description to the Introduction to World Language course that we started offering. And we removed the water sports course, which has actually been embedded in just the typical PE class. So they don't have a separate course for that anymore, and haven't for a number of years. And then the last thing in middle school was we changed the Math Plus in 8th grade to fit the actual course, which is Algebra 1. And so those are our middle school and elementary updates.
And at the high school level, similar formatting and updates to table of contents and names. Some courses were added as well. At CIC, there was a presentation for statistics in our community, robotics, and mathletics. Those 3 courses all passed in a vote and were added to the program of studies. We also added some level 3 courses in business. Those formally ran, but as an independent study. And so there were enough students in those classes to just build a course with that name. And then we're piloting an IB English SL class starting next year. So we added that course to the program of study and a description. We also removed a few courses that for several years did not run at our high schools, and so we've listed those there for you to see. Some of those, like dance fitness, sound really fun, but apparently it just wasn't getting students signed up. So we removed those from the program of studies for the upcoming school year. Those are our updates for the program of studies. What questions might you have for us?
I will just say I was at the CIC meeting and saw the presentations on both the math classes and the robotics, and all of it was really very impressive. If I'm remembering right, the math classes were designed for students who didn't really have a math class to take as a senior, and they may not be college-bound students, but we need to still keep them engaged in the math world to be career-ready going forward. So there was some pretty neat stuff there, and the robotics class sounded amazing. So I'll put the plug in for that. I would like to ask just about a couple of the things that were deleted. So is IB Theater still a class, but we just don't have an SL class, is that right? Or we don't have it at all?
It hasn't run in a few years.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was being offered here and students came here?
No, it has been offered here. It just hasn't run for a few years. So it is my understanding that there's very few students who select that, so they haven't had enough interest to have a course run every year.
Okay, and then the IB biology is just an SL, you still have HL?
We're just running the HL, not the SL anymore.
Great, and then can you tell me about engineering principles? Whatever was that class?
I don't know, Terry, the history of that class, to be very honest. But I do know that there are some other classes, like computer science principles, that have generated a lot more interest. And so I don't know if you know the history of engineering principles. I just know that it hasn't run in years.
Well, and some of us were thinking maybe the robotics kind of filled that.
Fill that need.
And then my final one is about Latin. So what's happened there? Because we had such a thriving Latin program, and I'm just curious.
I think this year, if I'm not mistaken, I'd have to go back and look, we have less than 15 students enrolled in one Latin course. I'd have to go and confirm those numbers. So it's been a program that we have kind of phased out over time because of lack of interest. So
And those 15 students are kids that I understand were
started and were given an
just
opportunity
completing
to
them.
complete. Yep. So they're in Latin 3, I believe. So we let them finish their sequence of study, but we're going to wrap that up this
Interesting, because it seems like that would be a class that would have a lot of traction. So,
You know, at our next CIC, we will show you the results of the middle school elective survey, and I think that you'll find it very interesting. Not only about language, but what electives students in general would like to see us expand on in middle school. We had over 1,000 student responses. So I had a lot of fun over December break reading their responses, which we're excited to share with you at the next CIC.
And then a couple hundred parent and faculty
staff
ones.
as well will be part of
So
that.
that will give kind of an overview, I think, of just the general direction we're starting to see that want come out, and so it'll be really interesting.
okay, great. Thanks.
Do you mind, I know different board members have different level of understanding of SL versus HL with IB.
I didn't think about that.
No, you're good. Can you just give us a short snippet on SL versus HL?
I need to work on my elevator speech on SL, HL. SL stands for standard level. It is generally considered to be 1 year of study of a subject. HL is called higher level, and that is generally considered to be 2 years of study of the same subject. So when Terry asked about biology, HL, students are enrolled in that course as a junior and again as a senior, and they're continuing their learning over the 2-year period of time.
Thank you.
So as a student of Latin, who was a member of the Latin Club here at Portage Central and many years of Latin here at the time, I'm kind of sad to see that go. I, however, was in a discussion this weekend with a family of students who have recently or a little less recently graduated, wondering why we did not provide a robotics class, knowing that other local schools not only offered those, but sometimes had arenas set up, et cetera, that were quite impressive. And so I'm very glad to see that. The timing of that comment versus this meeting was oddly coincidental and kind of fun to be able to respond.
If someone wanted to take like 1 year of IB biology, can you still do that at the HL level and then not take the second year, or is it a 2-year program?
It's a 2-year commitment, yeah. So if you're working on your IB diploma, right, you would take 3 SL subjects and 3 HL subjects, and you would map that out with our IB coordinator what your strengths would be. So if your student is maybe not the best math or science person, they might say, I want to study an SL in these areas, right? And they would coordinate that with their IB coordinator in their buildings. Determine. So some students, we've got people in this audience who love English and love the HL English class, and who don't love that class, right? Are more math science people and would prefer to take those challenging courses.
I do appreciate a lot of the changes you made, and like cleaning things out and offering new ones, but I do have to say I'm sorry to see Latin go, and also for the science reason. My husband is a medical professional, retired, and he, relied on his Latin, all the time, and still does, so I would hope at some point maybe it would be introduced to our students, and maybe we can get some of our science teachers behind that to encourage kids and see how it's used outside of the language realm. And that keeps us as one of those schools that is offering some exceptional programming that others are not. So, and I think that's important.
We had a vibrant German program at one time too, and we haven't had German for about 10 years. So, basically it's French and Spanish, and I know French has even been kind of on the edge at times too. So like Mary Lou said, if we're going to call ourselves an exemplary district, we need to offer exemplary opportunities for our kids, and that needs to be stuff that isn't just IB.
And remembering that Latin has so many advantages beyond, the Latin that is often used in the scientific and medical fields and so on. The number of times my first year of teaching that everybody else in the school, in this small school, brought the English teachers were bringing me their vocabulary list and saying, how do you pronounce this and what does it mean? And I went, why am I the one knowing? Except I answered it correctly. But a lot of that was due in part to the Latin, where I had not realized it at the time, how much benefit it had on the SAT and ACT, how much it had in just general vocabulary, and so on and so forth, and understanding these words that they had never heard before, and why don't you know that word? It was, I'm sure, large part due to the Latin classes that I had taken, and so I would encourage that to be looked into as how it can be encouraged in the future. Understanding the reasoning behind it having been removed now, but saying how can we consider that or something similar to really improve those languages.
Yeah, I think we both see a need to continue just the language conversation in general. I graduated from the German program that was here long ago. But it definitely is something that could be a marker for Portage Public Schools, but at this time, just offering the two, we're building that program, and that's one of the goals of some of these shifts we've had. But it is going to be a constant conversation moving forward just on what do we want this to look like for Portage Public Schools. Along with
Believe it or not, my son took Latin for fun. He took it as a second language, so took two languages, but had a teacher for Spanish who also happened to be the Latin teacher, and he loved her so much that he took Latin as well. So, yeah, it's not the dredgy, boring thing that people think it really is. There's so much culture and history embedded in that too, that then when you go to Greece, you know what's going on.
I would be curious is if we're seeing some of that impact with how we've made some changes at our English program in middle school level. And then how we are, if with the change that we've made in our languages, if that intro course doesn't even cover Latin as an option for them to have that knowledge and insight, if that's a possibility of a course they could pursue.
That's definitely something we haven't considered or thought about. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thanks.
Thank you for bringing all of this to our attention. Thank you for your report. The one I looked at in depth was middle school, and I requested it, and I think Leslie had it to me within 5 minutes, so I took a look at that, and I just want to say I'm real happy that Math Plus is now Algebra 1, because that's what it is.
That's what it is, right?
We will be very clear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we've reached the end of our agenda. I just need board self-assessments and margin report evaluations on 2.5 and 2.9. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.
The closed session minutes.
Oh, the closed session.
Last that long.
Thank you.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Just hang on to it.
I turned it in.